السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الذي لا إله سواه، والحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، حمدا يليق بجماله وجلاله وجزيل وكريم عطائه ونعمائه. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف أنبيائه سيدنا ومولانا محمد الصادق الأمين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اجعلنا منهم. Um, Welcome everyone to our second session on Tazkiyat al-Nafs, self-purification and character reform. Today we will focus on three subtopics: the qalb, or the spiritual heart; the nafs, the low base self; and the reason or the importance of Tazkiya, or self-purification. Our sources, as usual, are from the Sahba Seminary by Al-Madina Institute. If you recall what we talked about last week, just to recap, to bring everybody up to speed, especially that we might have newcomers that did not attend last week. What we established together last week, number one, is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is near to us, closer to us than our own jugular veins. And if for whatever reason I do not feel the nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason is I am the one who's turning my back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the solution is to turn towards Allah and start taking steps towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to what gives us life. Like our deeds are not for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not need us, does not need our worship, but rather it is for us. And Islam and everything in Islam, including Shara, including Sharia, commands, prescriptions, are not Sisyphean tasks. What are that? What are Sisyphean tasks? A Sisyphean task is a futile task that has no reason. Like imagine yourself, for instance, asked to push a boulder up a hill, and you push to reach the top of the hill, only to let it roll back down, and then you start pushing again. Islam is not like that. Our ibadat, our acts of worship, all have noble purpose. So if at any point in time I feel, for instance, what is the point of praying 5 times a day, and I wake up the next morning and I pray 5 times a day, I am holding myself as close as possible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I think or take to heart, how should I feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we summarize this, that we should fly to the nearness or the shores of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like a bird, like a balanced bird that has head of love and wings of hope and reverent fear. In order to be able to do that and maintain my balance, I need to perpetually engage in a tazkiya cycle, and we briefly outlined what that is. It's a cycle where I acquire knowledge, know more, figure out what I've been missing in terms of useful ilm or useful knowledge, and then immediately that will trigger in me a sense of remorse, that how come I didn't know this before? How come I didn't do better before? And trigger tawbah or repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, I want to do better. But when this burst of energy inside of me that I wish to do better, and I wish to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I just let it go, then it will fade away. I have to continue acting on myself with effort in mujahada, in a struggle, trying to resist my personal inclinations and satanic inclinations to improve. And then when I do that in mujahada, that automatically would make me want to acquire more ilm, and the ilm would trigger more tawbah, and the tawbah will support me in my mujahada in pursuit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this cycle, you can enter it at any point from any of the three entry points, and it continues perpetually. Then we concluded last time by establishing two main things. Number one, the importance of sincerity in seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sidq al-talab. I have to ask myself, like, whatever your age is, whatever phase your phase in life is, you have to kind of pause and ask yourself, do I want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or do I want the pleasures of dunya? And then answer, you don't need to answer to anybody, you just need to answer to yourself. Do you really want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And in order to help me and help us on the path, given that I have sidq al-niyya or sidq al-talab, then I need to surround myself with good suhbah, because like birds of feather fly together. If everybody around me are on the same wavelength, the same resonate with each other, then we will help each other improve. So this is where we left off last time. And we continue today. Today we will continue. What we want to discuss today is the big existential question of who and what I am. From an Islamic lens, like nowadays, life around us is dominated by materialism. And we want to contrast this to the Islamic lens or the Islamic paradigm, where we are much, much more than just material. Then we'll talk about the components of the human being. Yes, I have a physical body. We pay a lot of attention to the physical body, but I'm also a soul, a ruh. And we need to pay attention to the better part of us, or the more important part of us, which is the ruh. Then we will zoom onto the qalb, or the spiritual heart, discuss a bit what is the qalb, or what is the spiritual heart, what are the main functions of the spiritual heart, why is it important, the primacy of the spiritual heart, and the different types of hearts that we can have. If I know the different types of hearts that I can have, then I would be able to cultivate the proper one. Then that would tell me how important it is to guard my heart. What do I do? What can I do in order to guard my heart? And we'll also talk about the nafs. This course says Tazkiya al-nafs. What exactly is the nafs? The nafs is the low base self, but we need to define that in a little bit more detail. And then how does it relate to the heart? What's the connection between my nafs, my low base self, and my heart? And what is the spiritual anatomy of the human being? My anatomy, the physical anatomy, we know I have my body, my brain, my heart, my stomach, my legs, this and that. But from the spiritual side, what exactly is the spiritual anatomy of me, and what do I make of that? And then we'll discuss the role of Tazkiya in all of this, the role of Tazkiya in feeding my soul, in purifying my heart, and in taming my nafs. And then we'll finish off with a gift from the Prophet ﷺ, a dua to treasure that we need to kind of remember and say every day after every prayer, just to remind ourselves to stay the course. So with that, let's start with the first one. What am I? That's a very big existential question. I personally believe that no one ever lives and dies without asking themselves this question. What is my identity? What am I here for? What am I supposed to do here? What am I doing in the 30, 40, 70, 80 years that I live on this planet? So, number one is that I am abd for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am created to lovingly, by choice, seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with gratitude and worship Him. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just intellectually, that if you ask anybody, like, who do you worship? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's much deeper than mental or intellectual slogan. Rather, it is spiritual, deep in the recesses of my heart and down into my essence and my bones. And this is what experiential Tawheed or Tawheed Wujdani is all about, which is the main purpose of our exercise here, or the Tazkiya course, is that I achieve experiential Tawheed in my life and beautiful akhlaq. I am the pearl of creation as a human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to be a khalifa or custodian or vicegerent or an ambassador of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. So how do I behave to be worthy of this khilafah? How would I behave to be reflective of the sovereign of the divine? And I hope you'd quickly agree with me that I am more than just a mere physical body. We are beyond that. I am a soul. I am a spirit. I am a heart. Just my body, that the body that I'm in is merely my ride in this dunya, and it doesn't last. We were created in Jannah. We were created for Jannah. And in this life, we are on a journey back to Jannah, back home. As Sheikh Mukhtar says, we are Jannawi. So, as I take the path back home to Jannah, there will be challenges, of course, and we want to be like salmon, where we swim upstream, we swim against the current until we reach our ultimate destination, which is Jannah. If I know that, if I adopt this mindset and heart set, then things will change significantly for me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Dhariyat, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me. This is what I am here for. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in Surah Al-Hijr says, فَإِذَا سَوَيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. That meaning that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the angels, that when I formed him, i.e., our father Adam, from clay, he's like Prophet Adam, Sayyidina Adam was laying there as just a body, like a statue, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed into him the created soul. Only then man became man, or human became human, and only then angel prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. There is a poet that says, عليك بالروح فاستكمل فضائلها فأنت بالروح لا بالجسم إنسان. Again, I am a body and a soul, but it is the soul, it is the ruh that makes me human. This is the important part of me. Therefore, I need to perfect the virtues of the soul, because we are human on account of our souls, not on account of our bodies. And we can pause here for a second and reflect, how much effort do you and me put on perfecting our exterior, our physical bodies? We go on a diet to lose weight. We exercise to build muscles. We put makeup. We spend money on our hair and whatnot. Me, obviously, but we spend money. Many people spend money um, uh, like beautifying the exterior image of us. But how much time? Let's ask, be honest with ourselves and ask this question: how much time do I spend? How much money do I spend? And how much effort do I put in perfecting my soul and my internal character, my essence? So we live in a world that is like dominated by materialism and materialistic philosophy, but we feel it deep down in us that I'm not only matter, I'm not just random, purposeless arrangements of atoms, or like we evolved from amoeba or whatnot, and it just was an incident, cosmic incident that has no aim. No, I'm not that. What differentiates us from the table that you're sitting at, or from an animal, or even a mosquito, or a bunch of dirt? At the physical level, we are the same, like same composition, physically speaking, but there must be something else than the physical being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, as we just discussed, that when he fashioned Adam and then breathed into him from the created ruh, only then came the order for the angels to prostrate to Adam. So this emphasizes and indicates that the importance of the ruh relative to the body. The body is just a ride, a suit, a pajama that he put on, and when it wears off, it's just buried and disposed. We all get older, whether we like it or not, weaker and less pretty with time, but who cares? Like the body ends up in dirt anyway when we pass on, and what remains is the spirit that never dies. And the heart. So, what is the heart? What is the spiritual heart? The spiritual heart, the scholars define it as a latif, subtle entity inside of us. It's aphysical. We're not talking about the pump, not the pump in my chest that pumps blood, but rather a spiritual entity that is the epicenter or the locus of my existence. Like my heart is the sovereign, the king, over all my other components, over the intellect, over my physical body, even over my nafs, if my nafs is tamed. So, what does this heart do exactly, the spiritual heart? What functions does the spiritual heart perform? We'll talk about three. The first one of them is that the spiritual heart is the seat of knowing. How do I know? How do I perceive? How do I know anything? Any knowable? Like, it is with my spiritual heart that I see meanings in life, the essence of reality. It's not the eyes that see, or it's not the eyes that go blind, but rather the hearts that are within our chest. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that go blind. So it could be two people seeing the exact same thing physically with their physical eyes, but one sees and understands and feels something completely different from the other. They are looking at the exact same thing, having the exact same experience in life, and their reaction to that experience can be completely different based on their hearts and their perceptions with their hearts. And this is what al-arifun, the people who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closely, this is what differentiates al-arifun, the knowers of Allah or people who know Allah closely, and the rest of us. They see what we see physically, but what they experience in their heart, how they react to life and act on life is completely different from the rest of us. Like just to give you a metaphor, like the heart could be, for instance, as a mirror that reflects the images of objects. What is the reality of what I'm seeing? What is the reality of an object? That the qalb here, if it is a sound heart, will see the true essence of reality, of the knowable, anything that we want to know. If my heart is sound, it will see it properly. However, if it's not, if my heart is distorted, if my heart is like not pure, deficient, the same way that as a deficient mirror doesn't project a true image, the same person could be standing in front of the mirror, as you see in the picture, in front of you, and the mirror reflects completely different things. So the exact same manner, metaphorically speaking, a deficient heart does not see realities, does not know the knowables properly. Now, when we say in movies, mirror, mirror on the wall, it's not mirror, mirror on the wall, it's mirror, mirror in my chest. How is the mirror in my chest? Is it proper or not? Is it distorted or not? And then among the knowables, my heart's function is to ultimately know and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most important knowable in our existence. So this is how important this function of the heart is, which is to know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hajj, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. Have they not journeyed on earth and have hearts by which they understand with? It's not my intellect, it's not my brain, it is my heart. For indeed, فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. Indeed, it is not the eyes that go blind, but rather it is the hearts that are within our chest that go blind. There is a difference between basar and basira. Basar is what I see with my physical eyes, but basira is what I see with my heart. In Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ رَبِّي لِمَا حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. That's like someone standing before Allah on the Day of Judgment, facing their accounting, and the person would say, "Oh Allah, like, why did you resurrect me blind? And I could see before." Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would respond and say, our signs came to you and you ignored it. You forgot. You forgot about me during your life. You forgot about goodness, and therefore you were blind. You had no basira, and today you are also blind. In Surah Fussilat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سَنُرِيهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to men that we will show them our signs on the horizons and within themselves. Do we reflect on that? Do we use our hearts to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us? Everything in the cosmos around us, whether it's outside of us or within us, is a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a letter from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we read the letter? Do we comprehend the message? Do we heed the message? All of this happens in the heart. Number two, the heart is, in addition to being the seat of knowing, it's also the seat of feeling and experiencing. Experiencing our deen, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happens in the heart. If you recall last time when we talked about how do you explain honey to an alien, you could describe it intellectually in all different ways, but only until you grab a spoon of honey and put it on your tongue, you wouldn't have experienced what honey is. So experiencing the sweetness of honey happens on the tongue. The same thing, experiencing the sweetness of Iman happens in the heart. Like if it's just intellectual tawheed that we're talking about, then you say Allah is one. Is that it? Intellectual only tawheed which is in the mind, can be superficial, can be even lip service. Like ask someone, do you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah, of course I love Allah subhanahu. Who's going to say no? But really, close your door, your bedroom door, and sit on the prayer mat and ask yourself, do I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you believe in Allah and everything in Islam? Everybody would say yes, but do you really? You need to pause, not like be running like a machine, but pause and ask yourself these questions. So experiential tawheed happens in the heart, not in the mind, or at least not only in the mind, but primarily the experiential part is in the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Qaf, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ. That surely in this is a reminder for whomever has a mindful heart. A mindful heart. This is where the experience is. Number three, third function of the heart is that it is the seat of will. I take actions on that basis. It is the engine inside of me that triggers actions. What actions? Like, for instance, an internal act, I could will to be lovingly merciful or content. This is a positive spiritual action inside of my heart. Or the opposite of that is that I can will to be arrogant, to be deluded. I think of myself that I am the best thing ever, while I'm not. I feel entitled. I feel violent envy. I look at others and what they have, and I wish that they don't have it. Not because I want the same, like ghibta, or wishing something, like if you see somebody with something good happening to them and you wish it for yourself as well, together with them, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you start thinking, how come they have this, they shouldn't have this, and wish them hurt and harm, this is violent envy, and this is an act, a spiritual act in the heart. There could be also external acts that I will to perform salah. It's my heart that will make me get up and make wudu and perform salah. Or on the other hand, I could will to party instead, or to retaliate against someone with vengeance to hurt them. This is negative action. So the point here is that the will is in the heart. The heart is the king, is the sovereign that orders the rest of me, orders the intellect. The intellect is, we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail later, but the intellect is just the CEO. The heart is kind of like the board of directors. The heart decides direction, sets direction. And then once the decision is made at the heart level, it's given to the brain or to the intellect to execute. If my heart is pure, I will give a good plan for the intellect to execute. If my heart is corrupt, then I will give the intellect a plan, orders to execute on something very bad. And then the intellect will trigger its soldiers, the limbs, and the physical parts of us to execute on the plan. So all this discussion is to say that the heart, the spiritual qalb, is the most precious of me. This is where taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is located. The Prophet ﷺ pointed to his heart 3 times and says, Al-taqwa ha-huna. This is where mindfulness and reverence, mindfulness of Allah and reverence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resides. This is where yaqeen and sidq. You remember last time we said that it all starts with sidq. Where is sidq? It's in the heart. Where is iman? It is in the heart. Where is tawheed wajidani? It is in the heart. So if I care for my heart, if I don't care for my heart, if I lose my qalb, if I lose my heart, I lost everything. And if I mind my heart and maintain it and find it, I didn't know I have a heart until I started studying this. Like I claim that Tazkiya made me realize that I have a heart. You find your heart, you find everything. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at how much money we have or what kind of car I'm driving, but He subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the inside of me, not the outside of me. And this is what I will be asked about on the day of judgment, what I harbor inside. And this is the scary part, that it's not just what I do in terms of external actions. There could be internal sins as well, spiritual sins, that what am I harboring inside my heart? And of course, we don't get punished for fleeting thoughts or khawatir, but we will be held accountable to what I accept and entertain within me. So examples, for instance, of the qalb, the good deeds of the qalb is, I magnify feelings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. I try to be forgiving. I try to be mercifully loving or lovingly merciful. I try to have goodwill. These are good deeds of the heart. I try to be adorned with divine characteristics at the human level. I try to be Rahim. I try to be Adil, just, merciful, and just. But on the other hand, I can also have bad deeds in my heart, as for example, such as arrogance and jealousy and so on. And then the heart is the eternal part of me. It outlives the physical, temporary body. No matter how long you and I will live, 10, 20, 50, 100 years, the body will go. And what remains is my heart, what's in my heart, and what I bring in my heart in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what I come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with on the day of judgment. We don't take wealth, we don't take children, we take only a sound heart or not. And this is what will either save us or disgrace us on the day of judgment. The Prophet ﷺ in the Hadith Sahih in Bukhari wa Muslim says, ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله. That there's a morsel of flesh inside of my chest. If it is sound, i.e. sound heart, then the whole body is sound. And if it is corrupt, وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله. If it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. Indeed, it is the heart. ألا وهي القلب. And then so the Prophet ﷺ pointed to his chest and says three times, التقوى ها هنا, التقوى ها هنا, التقوى ها هنا. And then in another hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ says, إن الله لا ينظر إلى صوركم وأموالكم ولكن إنما ينظر إلى أعمالكم وقلوبكم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not judge you, will not look at what color is your hair or your eyes or your skin or even your wealth, but we will look into your heart and at your deeds. This is a beautiful hadith in the Tabarani. The Prophet ﷺ says, إن لله تعالى آنية من أهل الأرض وآنية ربكم قلوب عباده الصالحين. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has vessels or containers and on earth. Those containers, like imagine you have a container that, metaphorically speaking, of course, holds the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this container is the heart of whom? The heart of the good servants or the righteous servants. These hearts are the hearts that contain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, metaphorically speaking. And then the most beloved of them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the most tender and gentle, meaning that the most beloved of those aniyah, of those containers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are the ones that are tender and gentle, meaning that if I have a tender heart, if I have a gentle heart, then this is the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَئِكَ كان عنه مسؤولا. Do not blindly follow what you have no knowledge of. Don't follow the herd. Don't follow society. Don't follow what everybody does and everybody is fine with. Have proper knowledge. Don't seek your morality from TikTok. Like, have proper knowledge, and verily the hearing, the sight, and the knowing heart shall be called to account. Sayyidina Ibrahim in Surah Al-Shura makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That, oh Allah, do not disgrace me on the day of judgment when we are resurrected, a day when neither wealth nor children will be of benefit, but rather one who brings to Allah a sound heart. بقلب سليم. What else do we want? How much more can we talk about the heart? The scholars say that there are 4 types of hearts that a person can have. There is the heart of the believer, which is liberated from attachments to dunya. The only attachment this heart has is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this heart is like a glowing lamp. It emits light. And there is the heart of the disbeliever, which is sealed or covered with ran. Ran is rust. بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. So this is the heart of the believer. It's just like covered in darkness and rust. And then there is the heart of al-munafiq, the hypocrite, which is turned upside down. What that turned upside down, like metaphorically speaking, means that that person, the hypocrite, received the truth, knows the truth, but yet they turned a blind eye to the truth, seeing things not as they really are, like distorted heart, like a distorted mirror. And then there is the in-betweeners. What is the in-betweeners? The in-betweeners, maybe many of us, the rest of us, where our hearts are fed from two sources, a source of Iman and a source of hypocrisy. Each one of us feels like spiritual highs and pure faith and Iman sometimes, and sometimes we feel hypocritical. And then that heart is defined on the basis of what dominates from these two sources. Is it like my Iman that dominates, or is it my hypocrisy that dominates? It's either a hadith or a saying of Sahabi Hudayfa and Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anhu قال القلوب أربعة. That's what we just said, that there are four types of hearts. قلب أجرد فيه سراج يزهر, a heart that is liberated from everything and it's like a glowing lamp. فذلك قلب المؤمن. وقلب أغلف, and a heart that is sealed and covered. فذلك قلب الكافر, such a heart is the heart of the disbeliever. وقلب منكوس, منكوس means upside down, and a heart that is upside down, such is the heart of the hypocrite who received the truth, received knowledge, then rejected it. And received the truth and turned a blind eye to it. And then the last one is the heart that most of us have, which is fed by two sources, a source of faith and a source of hypocrisy. وقلب تمده مادتان, مادة إيمان ومادة نفاق. That a source of faith and a source of hypocrisy. And the condition of that heart, هو لما غلب عليه منهما, the condition of that heart is defined by which of the two sources is predominant. So what is the conclusion of all of this? The conclusion is that I have a lifetime mission. I have a job here to do. That lifetime mission that I need to work on continuously, put energy into it continuously, is to reorient my heart, protect my heart, purify my heart, and nourish it. So we are created for ubudiyya to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is in the heart. We must reorient our hearts towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't turn your back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we agreed. And this happens in the heart. We have to protect the heart from all the negative signals around us. And there are plenty. Our hearts are constantly under attack. This is that takes heart attack, gives a heart attack a new meaning. Heart attack is not what takes us to the hospital. Heart attack is the attack that we get on our hearts every day, every minute. There is always something that is attacking our heart, whether it's around us in society, on TV, on my iPhone, everywhere. So my real job is to be the gatekeeper. The scholars say, kun bawaba qalbik. Be the bawab. I hope you know what bawab is, the young guys. So the guard of the heart. Be the gatekeeper of the heart. We have to every second examine what goes in the heart and what doesn't go in the heart, what I allow in and what I do not allow in. And then I continuously work on my heart through Tazkiya, because this is not something like you flick your fingers and it's done, or you realize intellectually and it happens, but rather it takes work, and then you will observe upon yourself that what resides in the heart manifests outside of me, and vice versa. When you see acts coming out of you and me, then this reflects what is in our heart. Some funny statistic, actually it's not funny, it's sad, that it is estimated that people spend about $600 billion on beauty and cosmetics industry to beautify the face and the body. So how much do we spend on the industry of purifying and beautifying our hearts? A Muslim is not static. A Muslim is becoming, meaning that it takes work, it takes mujahada, it takes that I aim for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take steps, and inshallah we would have arrived. We never stop. This is a lifetime mission, and a lifetime mission to the last breath. This is a strong story about Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, when he was dying on his deathbed. Um, um, that's his son narrating, telling the story of what happened. He's saying that I was like with my dad, with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and I had a piece of cloth in my hand. Like after he dies, he kind of like would tie his jaw and like to prepare for burial. And then he was sweating profusely, sweating a lot, and he would kind of doze off and then come back, wake up, and say, "La ba'd, la ba'd, not yet, not yet." And then he would kind of go in a coma again and then come back and say, "Not yet, not yet." And in one of his waking moments, the son asked, "Ya abati, ayyu shay'in ma yabdu mink?" What's going on? Why do you keep saying, "Not yet, not yet"? What are you talking about? Then Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal replied to his son and says, إن الشيطان قائم بحذائي عض على أنامله. Shaitan, the devil, is at my feet or at my shoes, and he's biting his fingers or biting his nails and saying, what is the shaitan saying? "Oh Ahmed, futtani, that you escaped me, Ya Ahmed, escaped me. I tried to sway you from the path of Allah, but I couldn't, and you succeeded." Then Imam Ahmad didn't want to take comfort in that. He didn't, like, he's not dead yet. He did not pass yet. So he says, "Not yet, not yet. Not until I die completely, then I am safe from you, O Satan." So this is the qalb that we need to mind and take care of for a lifetime. Now, moving on. So if this is the qalb, what is the nafs then? When I say the nafs, it's not just like generally me. Nafs in our context is the low base self. Like the qalb is pure by default, if you will. But I'm not just a qalb. I also have a self. And the self, the definition here in the context of our discussion is that it's the low base self that is driven by desires, like hedonistic desires, primitive desires, shahawat desires, and hawa. Hawa is the philosophical and intellectual whims, which is more dangerous than shahawat. Like I could be weak, for instance, going after lusty things or going after food, or I want to have drink alcohol or whatnot. That's shahwa. But hawa is dangerous because it justifies that. It's like, why not? Why can I not do that? People who do that are fine, and so on and so forth. So it's the nafs that has those low base attributes that are dominated by shahawat or desires and hawa, which is whims. So the nafs is the variable in me, meaning that, of course, it wants wealth, it wants power, if it wants luxury, it wants physical intimacy and whatnot. So it's like the nafs, the scholars describe it as, it's as if you have a creature with tentacles that trying to kind of dominate the heart, like eat the heart. Those tentacles are trying to attach, excuse me, attach to my heart. So if I'm not aware of this, if I don't cut off those tentacles of my nafs, then it will succeed in enveloping my heart. And then, of course, if my heart is overtaken by my nafs, then I'll be uh, unable to perceive and feel realities. I will not be able to will properly all the functions of the heart that we talked about. I will not be able to perform them because my heart is overtaken by my nafs, overtaken by the tentacles of the nafs. So the nafs can indeed, and illa man rahama rabbi, most of us fall prey to that the nafs takes command and hijacks the qalb, and then it becomes the veil between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the nafs is the gateway of shaitan. Shaitan always comes to us and say, you want this, you want that, how about this, have some fun, play a little. So it is the nafs that kind of takes those signals um, um, and tries to kind of send them to my heart. It's where, bottom line, is where sins originate and attack the qalb. So I have to be careful about this. Like when I say when I say I want this or I do that, what is this I that is speaking and thinking and opining and wanting? When we get into discussion and say, "Well, I think this and this, I don't believe such and such, I believe one, two, three." Which I is talking here? That is it, like compare when shaitan says I versus when angels say I. Which one is it that the I that in me that represents me, which one is it? That like as we grow spiritually and mature in our Tazkiya journey, we will be able to discern which when I want something, when I intend or will to do something, I will be able to tell which part of me is talking here. Is it my nafs or is it my qalb? What is a qalbi good time versus a nafsani good time? You tell me. Do you feel better praying Taraweeh or going to a party? Which part is speaking? So one scholar says, النفس حجاب بينك وبين ربك, that yourself, the low-based self, is a veil between you and your Lord, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Hadith ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, Hadith Hassan, says the Prophet says, الشيطان جاثم على قلب بني Adam, that shaitan is upon, it's like residing with the tentacles on the heart of the son of Adam. When the son of Adam, فَإِذَا ذَكَرَ اللَّهِ تعالى خنس. Who's khanas? Shaitan. Then when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then shaitan retreats. That's like gets scared and walks away. وَإِذَا غَفَلْ, when I forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and become heedless, then shaitan comes and starts whispering in my ear and whispering in my heart and triggering my shahawat, and triggering my hawa, and so on. So to kind of put the pieces together, if you will, when we have a spiritual anatomy, like similar to having a physical anatomy, we have also a spiritual anatomy. At the center of that spiritual anatomy, that you have the heart, which is the default of the heart, the innocent heart is pure. And then it emanates from, like you have a pure soul, a beautiful creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acting on the heart and making the defaults or the fitra of the heart good. But at the same time, I have the nafs, the low base self, which is burdened by shahawat and hawa, acting on the heart at the same time. So which one is going to win? This how the different types of hearts are determined. That if the goodness in me, the goodness from my soul dominate, then I have a sound heart. If my nafs wins and overcomes the heart with its tentacles, then I have a distorted heart. And then once the heart decides which way it is, as I explained, that the heart, think of the heart as the board of directors, that it's the decision-making body of an institution or a company or me. So the board decides which way it's going to be, good or bad. And then that decision is sent down to the intellect to execute. I could be very, very smart, but I have ill intentions and I would use my IQ to wreak havoc on Earth as we see around us. Look at who's dominating the planet these days, who's ruling the planet and driving the planet. They are not necessarily dumb people. They are very smart. They wouldn't be where they are if they were not intellectually smart. But they are not emotionally smart. They are not spiritually smart. They have IQ, but they don't have EQ. They don't have SQ. And then the intellect then sends orders to the limbs, drink the beer or go pray, prostrate, and so on. All of this comes from the intellect, which is driven by the heart. So it's very, very important to keep this spiritual anatomy in mind. Like every single decision I make in life, I pause for a second, don't be quick to the trigger. I pause for a second. Why am I doing this? I want to do 1, 2, 3. Why am I doing this? Is it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or is it for my nafs? Is this coming from the pure part of my heart or is it coming from the part that is overtaken by shahawat and hawa, by desires, low-based desires and intellectual justifications of the low-based desire. And inshallah, with Tazkiya, then this improves. And this is the reason why we need Tazkiya, that I need to know my spiritual anatomy. This is, core in the Tazkiya journey is to know what is my spiritual anatomy and how to purify my heart, how to make my heart as pure as the water you're looking at, how to purify and tame the nafs. The nafs, think of the nafs as like a wild horse, wants to jump and break boundaries, and how to kind of hold the rein of the nafs, how to control it. Like it's a lot easier to control a walking horse than a galloping horse. So don't let the nafs run, because if the nafs runs, you'll not be able to stop it. So purified nafs would lead to purified qalb, would lead to tawheed, wujdani, would lead to akhlaq, character, sound character, and ultimately to noble happiness, not just in this world, but in this world and the next. And then it's like it takes work, like purifying sometimes is like having a crucible where we melt the gold at high temperature to kind of get rid of the impurities in that gold. So that's the journey of Tazkiyah, that the Prophet ﷺ was sent to us to purify us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we'll discuss in a second, takes oath 11 times in the Quran, mentioning the importance of Tazkiyah. Like in Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I want you to kind of like take this in, take verse by verse in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is allowed to swear by His creation. We are not allowed to swear by creation. We swear or take oath only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is His creation, so He's allowed to take oath by His creation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is making oath saying, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, like how magnanimous is the sun, how magnanimous is the daylight. Do you even know what the sun is? Do you appreciate what the sun is? وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, and the moon that follows the sun in orbit. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and the daylight and how it reveals. You see in daylight and it reveals the hidden. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and the night when it covers and conceals everything. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا, and the sky and that which constructed it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, and earth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spread it far and wide. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَاهَا, and by the soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in us and perfected the creation of the soul, and instilled in it a sense to discern the good from bad. Seeded us with the ability to discern righteousness from wickedness. See how many oaths? والشمس والضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا غشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها والهمها فجورها تقواها. What is the جواب القسم, the answer of this oath? قد أفلح من زكاها. That he has truly succeeded. فلاح, not succeeded in business or in money. The one who achieves فلاح, قد أفلح, succeeded to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who does what? Purifies it. What stronger evidence do we want? This is like 11 oaths by Rabbil Alameen, just to tell us at the end, قد أفلح من زكاها. And the opposite is وقد خاب من دساها, and has truly failed forever the one who bears it in evil. دساها is actually in Arabic is a strong word, meaning when you يدس في التراب, meaning you take something and bury it in dirt. When they used to kill newborn daughters back then in Jahiliyyah, the suha في التراب, meaning that you take the little infant and bury it in dirt to kill it. So here that the one that buries the self in dirt is the one who truly failed forever, while the one who truly succeeded, أفلح من زكاها. Then in Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Surah Al-Jum'ah, هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to us a prophet from ourselves, a messenger, to recite to us the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and purify us. ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة, teach them the book and wisdom. And without that, we were lost. So this is what Tazkiya is. And this is how Tazkiya is so important for the heart, purifying the heart, for elevating the soul. I am what I am because of my soul, not because of my body. And that's what ultimately leads to falah. So what is the message here? The message here is Tazkiya, Tazkiya, Tazkiya. This is what we need to do. It's a perpetual cycle that doesn't end. It's not a course that I take and finish. It's not a degree that I take and finish. This is a lifetime mission. But if I do that, would I succeed? I will not succeed without dua. That, as we all know, we put the effort, and it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that makes things happen or not happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees what's in our hearts, and we raise our hands and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He is the one that ultimately puts barakah in um, our effort and grant us falah at the end. So dua is kind of like the umbilical cord. Like imagine that you have an umbilical cord from my heart to the heaven. That umbilical cord is dua, the quickest and most direct means to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's like central to Tazkiyah. So it's an essential practical element of Tazkiyah to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's not my effort again that will make me succeed, but my sincerity in dua. The Prophet ﷺ was always in dua, always in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know the saying that when life knocks you down on your knees, it's the perfect position to pray. When life gets tough on you, on me, this is when I put my head on the floor and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the message here to all of us is that never underestimate the power of dua. Never relegate dua to another time. Every salah, every morning, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before I go to bed, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After every salah, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is like Sheikh Mukhtar makes this strong point, is that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks me to do something, you know what should I do? I ask him back to help me do it. So, for example, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Udhkuruni," remember me, then I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Oh Allah, help me remember you. أعني على ذكرك وشكرك." Thank me. Oh Allah, help me. Thank you. We ask him back for what he's asking us to do to help us and put barakah in our deeds. And this obviously doesn't work with your boss. Like if your boss one morning tells you, "I want you to finish this project today," and you tell him, "Can you do it for me?" Well, you're fired. So obviously here this works only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about himself that he is hayy, has haya, has bashfulness, to turn down the hands of a righteous person that is raised to him subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua. Allah ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala feels haya to send this hand back or to reject the dua of that person. So it is dua that keeps us close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the king, as his door. Imagine, and وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, that you're knocking on the door of a king, asking for give me something, give me some money, give me some gold, give me food. Then what happens when you are given? You leave. You're going to take the gift, you're going to take the money, you're going to take the food and leave. But it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes makes us stay at his door, because this is the essence of ubudiyya, that I need to be at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, showing faqr, showing like impoverishment and neediness, because this is more important than getting what I am asking for. This ubudiyya, with my head on the floor, asking. This is what ubudiyya is. It's much more important than if I am giving what I am asking for. And then when I'm sincere, I have sincere faqr, this sense of poorness in my dua, then I absolve myself of my abilities. It's not me that gets things done. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is who ultimately has the ability to get things done. And in doing so, in submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Him, I receive Him. I receive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only what I'm asking for, but I receive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. That there's a famous dua known as the dua of Samnun al-Muhib. He says, كان لي قلب أعيش به ضاع مني في تقلبه. I used to have a heart. I used to have a heart by which I lived, and I lost it. I lost it in this dunya. I lost it in my shahawat. I lost it in my hawa. I lost it in the changing and flipping of my life. Ya Rab, urdudhu alay. Please, Allah, bring it back to me. فَقَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي فِي تَطَلُّبِهِ. For verily my chest feels so tight as I am longing to have this heart back. وَأَغِثْ مَا دَامَ بِي رَمَقٌ يَا غِيَاثَ الْمُسْتَغِيثُ بِهِ. Like, give me succor, O Allah, so Allah, for as long as I remain breathing, O reliever to whom or to people who seek succor from Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, says, يَا مُقَلِّبَ الْقُلُوبِ ثَبِّتْ قَلْبِي عَلَى دِينِكَ. Hearts turn. One day I have a good heart, the next day I forget. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, O Allah, turner of hearts, keep my heart firm upon your path. We pray, Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. O Allah, show us the truth as true. Give me the sound heart, that not the distorted mirror. Give me the sound heart that when I see the truth, I realize it is the truth. And inspire me to follow it. Help me follow it. And show me falsehood as falsehood. Again, if my mirror is true, then the mirror of my heart is true, then I see falsehood as falsehood, and then I seek help from Allah to abstain from it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ghafir says, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us, saying that, call upon me and I will respond. Call upon me and I will respond. I will answer your call. What else do we want? إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين. Indeed, those who are too proud to turn to me. Many people say, who needs Allah in this society particularly? Who needs Allah? We have AI. I can create. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that He cannot create a fly. If the whole planet tries to create a fly, they will not be able to create a fly. And to rub salt in their wound or to put insult to injury, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that if a fly robs you of something, if a fly stands in your sandwich and takes a bite, you will not be able to take it back. So those who are too proud to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua, then they will end up in Jahannam, wal-'iyāzu billah. إن الله حيي كريم يستحي إذا رفع الرجل إليه يديه أن يردهما صفرا خائبين. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is too bashful to turn us back, too shy to turn us back when we sincerely raise our hands in dua for Him. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh says that إني لا أحمل هم الإجابة وإنما أحمل هم الدعاء فإذا ألهمت الدعاء فإن الإجابة معه. That I worry or feel burden whether my dua will be accepted or not. Rather, I feel burdened or I worry about whether I make dua or not. I forget we are on the hamster wheel of life. Run after the money, paying the mortgage, the job, the interview, the studies, the exams, and whatnot. I forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I forget to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I forget to make dua. But He says, فإذا ألهمت الدعاء فإن الإجابة معك. Like if I am inspired دعاء, if I remember to make dua, then the answer is coming with that dua. There's hadith in Tabarani, the Prophet ﷺ says that the servant of Allah would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lovingly, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves him. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the person making dua, he says, Ya Jibreel, O Jibreel, meet the need of this slave of mine, but delay it. Like, okay, I love this man or person, and he's asking me, give him what he's asking for, but delay it a little bit. Why, Allah? Why do you delay? If you love me, why do you delay what I'm asking for? Because he says, because for I love to hear his or her voice. As we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely in dua, this is ubudiyyah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that. So He grants us what we're asking for, what keeps us at His door. And then on the other hand, if a person making dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like the person, then He tells Jibreel alayhi salam, oh Jibreel, give him or her what they are asking for, because and quick, just get it over with. Give them what they are asking for, because I don't like to hear their voice. So to finish up or to wrap up, we finish up with a gift from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. أوتي جوامع الكلم, that he speaks pearls of wisdom. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, إذا رأيت الناس يكنزون الذهب والفضة. That's the advice to all of us. When dunya is sparkly and attracting us, and I want this and I want that, and I want to the wealth and health and this and that, and you see people are chasing, this is what they chase about, stock market, bitcoins, you name it. It says that when you see people amassing meaning you have a startup and the next day you're selling it for $100 million. Like massive wealth that comes in a very short period of time. So when you see people do that, when you see people amassing gold and silver, yaknizun, treasure gold and silver, then you Muslim, you mu'min, you muhsin, believer, treasure these words. Remember and treasure these words. And then he continues and saying, Allahumma, it's a dua. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-thabata fil amr. وأسألك التثبت والتثبيت في الأمور والعزيمة على الرشد وأسألك شكر نعمتك وحسن عبادتك وأسألك قلبا سليما ويقينا صادقا ولسانا صادقا وأسألك خلقا مستقيما وأسألك من خير ما تعلم وأعوذ بك من شر ما تعلم وأستغفرك لما تعلم إنك أنت علام الغيوب. Oh Allah, I ask you, this is what I treasure. I ask you for steadfastness in the matter, in all my affairs. I ask you to enable me to discern, have discerning clarity in every matter, and resolution upon guidance and goodness. وَالْعَزِيمَةَ عَلَى الرُّشْدِ. I ask you for gratitude for your favors and to worship you in the most beautiful way. وأسألك شكر نعمتك وحسن عبادتك. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be grateful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to worship Him beautifully. Then we ask Him for that. Oh Allah, help me be grateful. Help me to worship you in the most perfect way. And I ask you for a sound heart. Remember how much we spent on the heart? I ask you for a sound heart. قلبا سليما ويقينا صادقا ولسانا صادقا, that I ask you for true يقين, true certitude. And I ask you for a truthful tongue ولسانا صادقا. وأسألك خلقا مستقيما. I ask you, Allah, for like upright character. What is our goal in this course? Experiential tawheed and beautiful akhlaq. Then we ask Allah for tawheed and akhlaq. I ask you for an upright character. I ask you for the good of everything that you created, and I seek refuge in you from the evil of all creation. I ask you your forgiveness for what you know about me, because you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know everything. This is what the Prophet ﷺ tells us. This is the treasure. This is what we should be after every day. After every prayer, I make that dua of the Prophet ﷺ. So the takeaways here is that from today, that I need to perfect my spirit. I need to improve my akhlaq, not just my khalq, not just my body. I need to remember my spiritual anatomy, how the pure soul acts on my heart and how the nafs acts on my heart, and whichever dominates will shape how clear and sound my heart is, and that will go to my intellect to execute. Therefore, I have to purify and tame the galloping horse that is in me, that is the nafs. I have to purify my heart. I have to be the gatekeeper, bawab of my qalb, the gatekeeper of my heart. I have to be in tazkiya, tazkiya, tazkiya. I have to be in dua, dua, dua. So is that like maybe after we're done, reflect. Just sit with yourself and reflect. Reflect. What should I reflect about? I reflect about my real nature. Am I a body to perfect, or am I a soul to perfect? Do I have a heart? What kind of heart? How do I protect my heart from my nafs? How I can regain or reclaim my heart that I have lost in this dunya? Is dua integral, is an integral part of my life? How often in the day you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If not, how will I make it so? How would I integrate dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my daily life? And just look back at our lives. Each one of you like had experiences, many experiences in life. Ask yourself, when have I felt closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And when have I felt farthest from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Often farthest or furthest from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is accompanied with sin. حفظنا الله جميعا, that when we make a major sin, you feel the disconnect. Couldn't be more direct, couldn't be more immediate. When I fall into sin, how disconnected do I feel? What did my nafs and my qalb feel like on those moments? And how was my dua on those moments? So with that, we'll stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Let me pause the recording.